Okay. Welcome to the Smithfield Planning Board meeting for May 16th, 2024. Before we begin, I'd like to review the emergency evacuation and health notification. In case of emergency, there are two main exits out of the chambers. The first is to the left side of the stage, up the stairs, through the doorway, and down the stairway, out the back side of the town hall. The second is out back of the chambers to the exit doorway, to the stairway out in front of the town hall. The men's facilities are through the back of the chambers, past the stairway, around the corner on the right. The ladies' facilities are through the back door of the chamber, straight up the stairs and on the left. Please do not use the elevator in times of emergency. Initially, a review of the minutes from March 21st, 2024 and March 25th, 2024. Any comments, proposed changes, or amendments?
On the March 21st, on the second page, right at the very end, last line, it says the vote on the motion being in its favor, one abstention. It should be opposition, one in opposition.
That's correct. I recall that. Any other proposed changes and or amendments to the meeting minutes? Do we have a motion?
Motion to approve minutes.
Okay, do we have a second? All in favor? Aye. All not in favor? The ayes have it. Going to the regular agenda, old business, we're going to take out of turn because it'll be very quick. GDM ESS LLC ID 23-12 informational meeting. And this, as I understand it, is a request for an extension and or continuance.
Good evening, Mr. Chairman, members of the board. For the record, my name is Kelly Morris Salvatore. I'm actually special counsel to your board. Mr. Ursillo has a conflict, so the town has hired me to represent you for this application only. So the applicant has appealed a decision of the zoning official. That's going to be heard by the zoning board in June. And then it may or may not proceed to Superior Court after that. The applicant has asked that you hold this in abeyance until that process is resolved, and then we may or may not be back to you at that time. So I've suggested there's no reason to continue it month to month because this could take several months. We do have a letter in the file that asks you to hold it in abeyance, so that covers you. And once those proceedings are resolved, they would advertise and give notice to abutters at that time if it comes back to you.
Is there any requirement for the board to formally vote on that?
Yeah, I would just move to table this for now. It doesn't have to be, again, continued to a date certain, as you would usually do when something's been given notice.
Okay. Any discussion?
If I may, Mr. Chairman, the appeal process on the zoning, how does that work now with the changes?
So most of the time, it's never going to go to the zoning board. However, with this particular decision of a zoning official, it does go to the zoning board.
It goes to the zoning board for this appeal.
For the appeal of the zoning official's decision. And then it could go to Superior Court after that. Your decisions from now on will go directly to Superior Court.
And am I correct that this board has taken no vote on anything to do with this application?
I don't think you've seen this application
That's
until
correct.
tonight.
No,
We had an informational.
Informational, we did.
Pre-app.
You had a pre-app?
So sometimes, yeah, I was not aware of that, but that's a meeting that you don't take any votes on. So you may have seen an introduction to the proposal, but you should not have taken any votes on that.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Any other questions or comments of the board members? Yeah,
Mr. Chairman, move to table this item, GDM ESS LLC, ID number 23-12.
Second.
all in favor? Aye. All not in favor? The ayes have it.
Thank you. Maybe I'll see you again. Thanks.
Okay, returning back to the meeting notice and agenda, DRG Acres ID 24-03, public hearing for Unified Development Review.
Good evening, Mr. Chairman. Attorney John Shikachi for the applicant. And to my left is Sam Hemingway. He's the engineer and surveyors on the project. And we have Mr. Doug McLean here as a land use expert if we need any testimony from him. I'm not sure, Mike, do you want to do an introduction or do you want me to just? Yeah, just because it was a little different, right?
As I explained in the memo, this project you saw at a master plan level back before the first of the year. Since then, the applicant has decided to resubmit under the new regulations, which would make this, number one, a minor subdivision. It was classified as a major before. Now it's a minor at preliminary plan. And it's here under the Unified Development Review Regulations, which requires, it gives the authority to this board to grant the variances. And I believe our attorney and Mr. Sikarchi can go through briefly what the standards are there. I kind of laid it out in the memo as well about voting on that. We are required, I believe, to hold at least a conditional vote on the variances first prior to hearing the preliminary plan and going through all that. So that just kind of set the table for that. So we're going to have to take up the various dimensional variances they're looking for. They're looking for a frontage variance and rear yard setback. So I think we voted the first time around a master plan to grant the waivers, the planning board waivers on the road width and things like that, strictly pertaining to planning board conditions. So I would, turn it over to Mrs. Sikarchi to go through that.
Thank you, Mike. Yeah, so just in summary, the statute has changed January 1st, and you're allowed to do the zoning and the planning in one bite at the apple, if you may, on the unified zoning. I believe it's the first time that you guys have done that. So you now have what I call superpowers. You have the power of your planning board that you've traditionally had, and also the powers to grant the variances. And the reason we started with your honorable board and got it approved at the end of last year was because that was the process and the statute at the time. The statute was a little bit in flux, but it did go into effect on January 1. So the title company, we were discussing it, because they ultimately have to, pass on these things. So that's a little weird, guys. You started under the old statute, and you're going to continue in the old statute, but there's a new statute in effect. If you don't mind, to keep it clean, because we're in a new world, why don't you withdraw your application, go back before the same board, and get it reiterated, reapproved, and then talk about the dimensional variances. So that's the path that led us to you this evening. So I think it's prudent at this time to bring up Mr. Hemingway. He could refresh myself and the board's memory on where we were, what you had previously approved, and the slight changes you've made. And obviously, we'll ask any questions you guys may have. And then we could talk about the dimensional relief, as Mike brought up. I agree that we should deal with those discussions first. Then we can talk about any questions you may have on the planning part of it. And then if everyone's okay, we'd have 2 votes on it and continue on. So Sam, if you don't mind, why don't you just refresh your memory on what was previously approved and the minor changes you had, and answer any questions they may have on the concept.
Good evening. Again, Sam Hemingway. I'm an engineer with Garofalo and Associates doing. I'm an engineer with Garofalo and Associates doing business out of Providence. As was indicated, this is kind of a reiteration of a plan that came before you back in, I think in November is when it was finally approved. It had been before you a couple of times before that stage. This is an 8-acre, give or take an 8-acre parcel on Douglas Pike, on the west side of Douglas Pike, so just south of Whipple, north of Douglas Lumber. In any case, the property does have frontage on the highway, but it is constrained by regulatory wetlands and buffer zones. It is technically in an R80 zone, but it is surrounded by much more intense zones both to the south and southwest, as well as medium density zones immediately adjacent. And then to further compound that issue, there are a number of substandard lots that you can see if you look at the plan. The ones immediately in front of the property and immediately adjacent are significantly smaller than either of those zones would allow. So basically, there are some pretty unique conditions on this property that made us look toward reconfiguring the lots in a manner that provided buildable lots that were consistent with the general area and with the zone that was effectively should be more intense than it is, would have more opportunity for development on the site if it were not configured and constrained the way it is. So what we came up with through working with this board was cutting frontage lots off of the state highway. So reduced frontage lots, each of those lots, as you see drawn, have frontage on the highway, but then to incorporate a private drive that services each of the lots. To remind the board, we came before you a couple of times, got input. We made modifications to the configurations to try and improve the access and cross easements across each lot. We initially had a small cul-de-sac type turnaround, which we changed in favor of this hammerhead type turnaround. We worked with the fire department to ensure that their vehicles were able to turn safely within that. Again, in November, a vote was actually taken by this board on master plan, and we proceeded on to make an application to zoning. With the redirection, we kind of stepped back and advanced the engineering beyond what you had seen last time at the master plan level, and submitted to the state agencies, including OWTS system suitabilities for all of the lots, wetlands application to the state, and DOT for the curb cut application to the state highway. So we have advanced these. I won't go through each individual page, but we have advanced these to incorporate all those designs, stormwater management conformance with the state rules, et cetera. We have obtained the wetlands permit, and we have obtained the OWTS system suitability, which is the only stage required for this type of development. We actually are technically still waiting for the RIDOT physical alteration permit. We may touch on that a little bit later. So that application was made back in the end of January. The state is tied up with historic letters, is kind of dragged out that process. We got, I want to say in April, we got HPC sign off, which then restarted the DOT. We are confident that we're going to work through any issues that they have now that we've got the more cumbersome regulatory stage out of the way. So we expect it. We were hoping to have that for tonight's meeting. We do not. But we do have an indication from DOT that there are no significant issues with the configuration as shown. I'm not sure if there's something else I need to touch on in terms of the specifics of the review. The application does request frontage reduction from a required 200 square feet for an R80 zone to 73 feet, lot width of the same amount. And then we are similarly asking for a rear setback relief. Again, all of these dimensional requirements are more consistent with the smaller lot that is actually what's occurring in the area. If you don't recall, there's a little bit, the language of your ordinance is odd as it relates to defining a rear setback. So we thought rather than, and I think it was in conjunction maybe with some input from the planning department, to simplify it and simply come back and request a 50-foot rear setback, which is would be consistent with the other zones, with an R medium zone. In fact, it's actually a little bit less, a little bit more of a setback than would be required under those types of zones. It's a 73 feet where 200 is required.
That's on each lot.
Yes. One of them might be slightly enlarged if you look at the drawing. It's the one farthest to the left is the angle of the lot. But the intent was to split the frontage equally between the 4 lots. And so the dimension is the same, the frontage dimension is the same for each.
Stephen, if you could, we mentioned that the board previously approved the master on it. Tell us, just so they're clear, what's the minor changes you made since the last approval?
You know, frankly, it's been adding engineering. There's been virtually no changes to the configuration that was worked out through that master plan process. It was just an advancement of basically the grades and the inverts and the like.
So is it basically, if this board were to use this here preliminary, normally we come in for master, the old statute, do more engineering, come back for prelim, so you basically went forward, did that type of work?
Yeah,
and got-
these are in fact advanced, and the checklist was provided for the full preliminary submission.
And if the board feels fit to approve it, the only condition that we're waiting for, that we would, before we record, would be the DOT road opening permit. Is that correct? Great. Thank you.
So what's being proposed today is substantially similar to what we saw and approved the last time the matter was before.
Virtually identical.
Okay. Do we have some questions of board members? Charlie?
A question for Mr. Phillips. Do you have any other plat, anything like this kind of development in this town where the road goes through other people's property like this? I'm just worried about, this looks a little.
We have basically has a road through it that's all, not individual lots, but there are, private road.
Yeah, I know, the difference is like one right there especially, it's almost like the whole section, how does that guy get from that side of that property to the front of his property without pole? How does he cut his grass, goes through it?
Are there easements for the roadway?
Yeah, so if the board approves it, there'll be easements recorded in perpetuity to allow the access, just like a regular road. As it's very similar, as Mike said, to a condominium complex. I believe there's something similar. Is it called Somerville, Mike, from years ago?
I couldn't find anything.
Yeah. And there's one up the street that's very similar, a private road with a gate about a half a mile down on the road.
Well, there's a private where it goes around a little bit, it's the frontage. This, the one you're talking about is a frontage situation, but it's not a drive right through it.
Right.
That's a road right through, that's splitting a parcel. The other one's splitting it a little bit, I can understand a little bit, but that one lot there is going directly through that parcel of land. How are them tenants gonna get along with that?
Well, in way of clarification, so one of the things that we presented, I think, when we first came to this board is we were looking at rezoning and having a road with
That's what I
simply the
thought.
buildable areas on the other side.
Last time I talked to you, I thought you were gonna try and do something.
Well, we were headed in that direction, but the process and the burden of going to a rezone and ending up in the same place, it was collectively decided by the team, and I'm not going to even guess what that really means, but with input from everybody, that this, although technically I understand the issue that you're raising, everything that is outside to the left of that road, as it's shown, is restricted property. So it is either regulated wetland that we have offered to put open space easement, restrictive easements on, or it's utility, i.e. stormwater basin that is going to be maintained by the homeowners association. So effectively, everything to the west, or, plan west, actually north, is restricted and has full access really of the community only anyway. All of the development portion of the property, the driveways, the services, the buildings, the yards, are all wholly within individual lots. That was one of the things that we talked about with the crossing of the driveways, and I think we recognized that that was a specific condition that would be difficult to, that could pose problems. We feel like when we change to this configuration, there's no reason that the homeowner on the south side of that road is going to be fighting over open space on the north side of that road.
Well, like I said, last time I brought this up the last time. You said you were going to look into changing this, and I don't see any change that you look into satisfy my question from the last time. My question also to you is, I don't know the legality or something like that. How does the homeowner's insurance, I mean, do you tell your homeowners, I got a road going through my property? I mean, who's the liability of that?
Yeah, it's pretty similar in my world as a title attorney, that you insure over easements. So this, in essence, would be only an easement over the first 3 lots. The last lot wouldn't be subject to any easements. In each one of the individual homes, 1, 2, and 3 coming in, would note that in their policy. But there's also going to be a homeowners association, which would have a general policy that would also protect against that. Very similar to a condo or a planned unit development.
Is that going to be in writing that that's going to be done?
Yeah,
Because that seems-
that would be one of your conditions of the approval, and we'd make that subject to the solicitor, of course, approving the wording and the homeowner association before we record. But it's a very good point.
Because if I was an underwriter of that piece of property, I'd say, you're putting a road through it? What about children, your children playing?
Yeah, but it's really no difference than any home that has an access easement, and there's a lot of those.
But that's a road.
Well, it's a private road. It's really a right. It's a
That's
right
a
of way.
road.
But all 4 homes would have a master policy to protect against that for liability, and then each individual note
My point
it.
about the whole thing is, I don't know anywhere where we've allowed that before. Do you know anywhere, do you know another town that has?
Oh, yes, I've done it many, many times. It's very, very popular in the southern part of the state, and Sam could attest to that. It's actually encouraged. North Kingstown, South Kingstown, Charlestown, Wesley has a lot of them. I've done some myself, actually, as a developer.
If I recall, one of the concerns was not so much the roadway configuration, it was the driveway. And there was the concern about access with driveways, and that was reworked, was it not? If I recall, that was the driving concern we had.
Yeah, why don't you show them that, Sam, to refresh your memory, how that was addressed, if you don't mind?
Yeah,
Well, like I said, as long as there's an insurance policy, the town's not responsible.
No, we take all responsibility for liability, maintenance, et cetera. It's a very good point, and we're more than happy if you approve it to make it a condition that the solicitor has to review it before recording.
I'll be happy with that. Thank you.
Any other questions of board members before we open for public hearing? Okay.
Mr. Chair, just want to make sure you got your variances correct. So you need 100.
But we're doing that before?
Well, no, I just want for the record, but you can remind those.
Yep.
when we get to that.
Make sure this is right for the numbers.
It's 126 feet with each lot of front.
we gotta go with 127.
Let's be specific, make sure.
It was 73 where 200 is required.
Okay.
So you need 126 feet of relief.
I still got 27.
I think he said 127.
Oh, 127.
Yes, I'm sorry.
And then your lot width is the same relief, 127. For each lot. And what is the rear setback relief sought for each lot?
It is 50 feet where 75 is required by the underlying zone, so 25 feet.
So it's a dimensional relief for rear setback of 25 feet, correct?
We need 25 feet of relief.
Yes. So I'm not sure if the board has any other questions, but I think the procedure that council and Mike and I spoke about was you would address the dimensional requirements you spoke about first, then talk about any planning, correct?
Correct.
I think, right?
You have to have the.
Oh, no, I meant afterwards, yeah, of course,
Yes.
of course. Thank you.
It's now 6:25, and we're going to open the matter for a public hearing. If anyone would like to be heard, please come forward. With no one coming forward, the public hearing is closed at 6:26. Mr. That's to take a moment.
Make a motion to reopen the public hearing, keep the public hearing open so preliminary can be heard. And any other public wants to be heard after preliminary, then you can close the public.
I agree.
Okay, do we have a motion to reopen public hearing?
We're closed.
We never closed it.
It wasn't closed by motion.
No, we didn't do it by motion. I closed it, but not by motion.
Yes.
So I'm removed. Okay, so there's no question, the chair's statement that the public hearing is closed is withdrawn. Will remain open until further notice from the solicitor. Okay. Next, did I understand correctly that the plan was for a preliminary vote by the board on the zoning issues? Okay,
The dimensional relief, correct, the deviations?
Now, when you discuss the zoning aspect of the dimensional relief source,
okay. Any discussion of the board members on the request for the zoning dimensional relief requests?
Mr. Chairman, I just have one comment. On page 4 of the document submitted for dimensional variance planning report, it states, therefore, the denial of the requested relief would amount to more than a mere inconvenience, as it would impose a higher regulatory standard than what the town has accepted for all the abutting properties. I have not examined when each of these individual surrounding properties that he's referring to were cut out, but they may have been created at a time when the town had a different zoning for this area. So therefore, in defense of the town, I would say that those lots historically predate these, as a matter of fact, and it's, I take exception to that particular rationale or argument. That's all I have. It's just a comment, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. Any further comments or questions of the board members? Okay, do we have a motion?
It's the 3 variances, right, that we're looking at?
3.
All right, make a motion for approval of variances. One is on the frontage of 127 feet per lot. The lot width, which is the same of 127, and the rear relief, 75 is required, 25 feet of relief.
Do we have a second?
Second.
All in favor? Aye. All not in favor? The ayes have it.
So if I may, Mike, I think, and Council, we now talk about the master preliminary, and I think you requested, and we're more than happy to do that, if the board allows it to have final done administratively, subject to the DOT permit and the review, of course, of all our proposed documents for liability, homeowners, et cetera. Thank you.
Any discussion of board members?
Why not? If I may, Mr. Chairman, just for a second. Sam, why don't you bring that up? Although it was part of the application, I know we spoke about it previously, since we're starting over again, we might just want to note for the record specifically what waivers we had spoken about, approved previously, just to have on the record. Why don't you bring that up?
Yeah, there were two standards that we requested relief from. One was interior angles in excess of 200 degrees, and the other was a private road with less than a town road standard. So those were both granted as a previous master plan, but, and are part of the application.
Yeah, we have to do it again. Shall we make a request for any public comment at this point?
If they're done with their preliminary presentation.
It sounded like he was done.
Yeah, I think we kind of brought, part of our introduction, we kind of talked about, but if you wanted to go to more in detail, we're more than happy to.
From the looks, I took it as they were done with their presentation, and that's, okay.
Do we need a vote on the waivers?
I think that's all part of the application.
The approval.
That's all part. Okay. Okay, Charlie.
I have a question about the road, the landscaping part of it. It just says, what is the landscaping going to consist of?
It's a good, why don't you bring that up, that any ideas we have for landscaping or any recommendations you might have to put into the record?
So I don't know that, we did not submit a landscaping plan, but there was discussion of buffering at the rear of the lots. I honestly, we have not proposed landscaping as part of this, the development, because it's only 4 lots.
The client is more than happy to do any landscaping that the board thinks is appropriate. But my memory is that we did have a discussion previously, and we should bring that up again, that one of the neighbors had some concerns. We talked to him, and that we agreed to buffer the back of the homes. I could bring Mr. Grech up if you want to discuss it with him, but we're more than happy to do whatever you think is correct.
Yeah, like I said, I saw that, and it just says landscaping, like, you know.
Good point.
What is landscaping, you know? A tree, shrubs, grass, you know.
So my memory was, we were talking about some sort of arborvitae, I believe, buffering along the rear of the properties where the abutters were.
Yeah, well, that's what I'm thinking too, to stop the wind, snow drifts and stuff that's going to be.
We're more than happy to do that.
All right, thank you.
Any, Charlie, do you have any specific requests in this regard?
Well, like you said, arborvitae, something to stop the wind from blowing across.
If I may make a recommendation, we could say arborvitae's or whatever the planning department feels we should add to the plan, but we'll leave that up to you.
Just something, like I said, just something that just stops that snow from blowing across those lots.
We're talking from buffering lot 1 from the lots to the south, immediate south.
Well, I would say mostly, what is that, 1, 2, second lot? One with the road going through the middle of it.
Is that the second or the third? That's got the most road, the one with the most road frontage on both sides.
I know that we heard from a neighbor to the south, I think when we did master plan, south being to the right.
Yeah.
Lot 1, there was a specific.
They wanted it on that side.
Yeah.
On that side, yeah. I don't know if we heard from people in the Deer Hill, but if that's something that the board would like, then, yeah, that's something that they indicated they would do.
The owner refreshed my memory that the rear of the lots, is that, what's the last one on the left, Mike? Is that lot 4? Lots 4, 3, and 2 already have natural buffer. In the discussion was the first lot behind that was where we needed some sort of a buffering. We're more than happy to do all of it, but that's what the focus was.
Whatever, yeah. Thank you.
Thank you.
Any further questions of board members? No? Public hearing, again? It's now 6:35, and again, we will open the matter for a public hearing. Anyone wishing to be heard, please come forward. Not seeing anyone respond, we'll close the public hearing. And I don't recall that we had to vote on closing the public hearing before. Okay, all right. Just want to make sure.
Somebody said we didn't make a motion on it to everybody else.
I just want to make sure I wasn't missing anything. So, any further comments or questions of the board? How about, before a motion is made, let's make sure we're on the same page of the specifics needed with this particular application.
Do you want-
Yeah, the
The waivers, I think he wants, excuse me if I may, I think he wants to just double check with Sam, specific waivers as part of the planning process, then add on, I think, the condition of appropriate landscape buffering and delegation of,
That's correct, because someone's going to be
Final
making
few.
the motion. I want to make sure we cover what we need. So,
Waivers,
Sam, you want to reiterate the exact waivers for the record? Yeah, why not, you have it right.
someone going to make the, whoever's going to make the motion, please pay attention.
One would be waiver to allow for an interior angle greater than 200 degrees, and one would be for a private road width of less than a public road standard.
Okay, anything else? No. In the landscaping of the roadway?
Yep. That would be a condition.
Oh, as a condition. Yeah, I got it.
stay rid of the landscaping.
Thank you.
The last item was considered final, administrative,
But-
with the outstanding DOT approval. With the homeowners insurance.
Right.
Sorry.
I asked about the homeowners, that like kicks in for homeowners insurance.
And, correct. And a condition that the homeowners association agreement reflecting the road, what's happening with that road in terms of who's responsible for it, not me.
And if I may, I think he wants also a condition of that homeowner association, there is in place insurance protecting everybody, correct? Yeah. Thank you.
Okay, do we have a motion?
All right. I'll make a motion for approval of the preliminary plan. I do see here it says that the RIDOT physical alteration permit be submitted to final. Is that?
Yeah, so one of the conditions of your final would be that we get the DOT road opening permit as part of the recording.
And an angle of more than 200 degrees variance there, and the road width being less than a public road, is a private road, with the homeowner association agreement on the road, and an agreement with the insurance on that. Is there anything else?
Any conditions on landscape?
You're already talking about the backside of the properties, right?
Right.
And that,
The way I would do it, it's up to you, but I think I would say that verification that there's a natural buffer along the 3 lots in the rear, and if there's not, fill it in appropriately, but to have appropriate screening between the back of lot 1 and the abutters.
Mr. Chairman, if I might, we could probably just state that we could have screening in compliance with the town's landscape ordinance.
That sounds reasonable.
Yeah, perfect.
screening and compliance with the town's ordinances.
Are we missing any documents that we need to add as exhibits? Okay. Do we have a second of the motion?
Second.
All in favor? Aye. All not in favor? The ayes have it.
Thank you.
Okay.
Oh, we didn't talk about that. No, we didn't. I would,
Do we have a motion to?
yeah, change, revise,
Just add it?
okay.
Okay.
All right.
Do we have another motion?
Yeah, so make a motion that the final go to administrative approval.
Second.
All in favor? Aye. Aye. The ayes have it. Motion approved.
Thank you.
The,
Good catch.
Talk about that in a moment. After this. Okay, the next matter is Klein's 29 East, project ID 2402, pre-application concept review. I don't think they have. Should we check to see if anyone's outside? What's the appropriate protocol? Pass?
Essentially, we'll pass, and if they want to resubmit the pre-app, if we put it back down for another meeting, otherwise we'll come to you for master plan.
Do we need to take a vote on that, or can I pass it? Okay. Okay, not having anyone present for the pre-application concept review, the matter will pass. The next matter is Canton Court, conversion of performance to maintenance bond and acceptance of public improvements.
John Shikachi, for the applicant. I've been recently drafted by Dominic to talk about it for his brother. We didn't know it was on the agenda, but hopefully we can answer any questions you may have. I believe they're just asking for a bond release. Is that correct?
Yeah. I believe that you have in a packet a memo from the town engineer and the public works director, basically certifying that the subdivision has been completed to their satisfaction, and recommending that the performance bond be released in favor of a maintenance bond, and basically a recommendation to the town council to accept all public improvements and, turn the road over to the town for maintenance. These typically go to the council after this vote, and there's a maintenance bond that's held for a one-year period, guarantee period. So I believe there's a motion on the second page of that, laying out what you need to do. So.
Okay, any questions of the board members? Charlie?
We're saying we're gonna give him back the whole 40,000, is that what you're saying?
I'm going to keep 5.
Keep 5.
We're going to keep 5. The regulations require that we retain a maintenance bond, so
After a
it's a
year.
nominal amount. The subdivision road has been done for well over a year, so we don't anticipate there's going to be any need for work out there, but regulations require it.
Okay. Any further questions or comments of board members? Okay, do we have a motion?
The motion to recommend to the town council to release the performance bond, around 35,000, retaining 5,000, to be released in 1 year.
Okay.
And and to accept and to recommend acceptance of all public improvements.
Okay. Do we need that specifically stated by the
Yeah,
moving? That
because there are really three things we're doing.
I
so.
understand.
Let's see if I can reiterate that. I make a motion to recommend to the Smithfield Town Council to consider acceptance of all public improvements associated with the Mary Farms Lane and to discharge the $35,000, retain the $5,000 maintenance bond amount,
40,000.
or discharge the $35,000.
This, I think it's 40. Was it 40?
Total held right now is 40,000.
So 40 is going to be
35 goes now.
in 5, yeah.
So to discharge the $35,000 and retain the $5,000 for the 1-year guarantee maintenance bond. And was
Second column,
acceptance
of the town.
and acceptance of the town.
One thing I just noticed in here, it has Maury Farms Lane in here. That's a mistake. It should be Canton Court is the name of the road. Apologize.
Should I should redo it then?
No, just substitute Canton Court for Maury Farms.
So to accept the improvements associated with Candy Court, not Maury Farms Lane.
Yes.
With the same provisions. I make that motion.
Okay, do we have a second?
I'll second it.
All in favor? Aye.
Repeat it too.
Aye. All not in favor? The ayes have it. I don't believe there is further business on the agenda, although you mentioned you had a comment generally about procedure.
This is mostly for us.
So you want to go?
I want to propose 2 courses of action. Yeah, let's
Okay.
do that first and just discuss this. Chairman, it'll only take 5 minutes.
We don't want to make it like the last public meeting without notice. What's the?
Okay, here's the issue. We want to make, it's what, say again, Dave?
For an open forum, we don't want to start discussing 9 members.
Yeah, privately.
Here, you're in violation of Open Meetings Act.
Yeah, all right, this is more of how we're gonna brief this. We have a podium right there. Course of action 1, and the simplest approach, is give the briefer a laser pointer so he can better focus his presentation up here, making it easier for him and for the board members to follow him, all right? Course of action 2, in the event we decide not to go that simple route, allow the proponent or counsel or the contractor or whoever to brief up here, next to the map, next to the zoning diagram, the plan, in order to increase the clarity of the presentation, making it easier for the briefer and ourselves and yourselves, because it's rather awkward having the briefer there as opposed to being up. I'm an old school military officer, and the way we brief is we would use a laser pointer and conduct it in a way that is very easy for the audience to understand what we're pointing to and what we're referring to in the map, in the plan. You understand. What do you think?
We used to use laser pointers in the past,
Oh, you do have one.
but just not being used.
You're just gonna get the.
Okay.
Just, if someone's not pointing out, just, could you point?
Because tonight, without disparaging anybody, this plan up here could have been a little clearer to view. Now, if you look at somebody like Joe Casali, when he briefs us, his products.
He lays out everything and it's all layered.
Yes.
Michael, is that a laser pointer normally there, or is that yours?
I apologize.
So, no, so, The easy thing is I can remind that to please, when they come to present, to please use the laser pointer.
The clarity, the increase in clarity, that's going to provide us. It's going to make a huge
What you're
difference.
describing, you're trying to describe it from the north side. It's difficult for everyone to grasp.
Exactly. There you go.
Well, Joe just mentioned on the agenda, it might be good to put a note, please use laser pointer during presentations, and that.
Yeah, I mean, we should put a note on, some people come with boards, they don't, you can't, just people who don't have the technology, but
Even if they don't have the slickest products going, if they have a laser pointer and they can point to each feature in the map, in the plan, that makes it a snap. It would make it as if somebody didn't even study the pack, and they could still follow along. That's all.
Any further comments procedurally for future hearings? These were good dialogue. Do we have a motion? Do we have a motion to adjourn? All in favor? Aye. All not in favor? Motion's granted.